Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jenna Quinn, and it is my pleasure as the Assistant Director of Alumni and Affinity Engagement to welcome you all to this edition of the 49er Industry Chat Series. And so just so everyone is aware, this session is recorded. So really what that means for you is that this is going to be available to you on demand on our website at www.csulb.edu/alumni. So feel free to watch it again or share it with a friend or a colleague or anyone you think might get something out of this. And so with that, I am very excited to introduce to you Deanna Hendrick. Welcome, Deanna.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just read your bio really quick, just so that way folks can learn a little bit about you.
Perfect.
So throughout her career, Deanna Hendrick, MCM, has developed and implemented comprehensive communication plans that help increase brand awareness and grow active and expansive digital presence. As the Marketing and Communications Manager at IEHP Foundation, Deanna plays a pivotal role in establishing the organization's brand voice, developing the communication and marketing strategy from the ground up. She holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from California State University, Long Beach, and a master's in communication management from USC Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism. Awesome. I am excited for that. That's a cool sound in bio, Deanna.
Thank you.
So just launching right into questions. Um if you could start off with a little bit of background about you. I'm curious, about your life and your experiences and, you know, what it was that brought you to the beach in the first place.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for having me here. Cal State Long Beach plays a very big part of my life and my heart. I'm actually wearing gold and black today to represent Go Beach. So I am born and bred Southern California native. I remember when I was looking for schools a long time ago, and thinking about my major. I really wanted to go into journalism because I really wanted to tell the stories for those who couldn't tell them themselves. And when I went to Cal State Long Beach after I had visited many other schools, I was like, this is where I want to be. I can feel the beach breeze when I'm walking around campus. I was really impressed by the journalism department, all the other amenities on campus, and I was really excited to be a part and go there. And fun fact is that I met my husband while I was going to Cal State Long Beach, and we've been married for almost 10 years now, and I have two kids. So Cal State Long Beach is basically the most important thing in my life because it brought me my family.
Oh, I love that. I always say I've got to start like a whole series of these 49er mystery chats that are just beach couples and like beach love. I think that's so great. So
Beach
glad
love,
you
yeah.
did. Well, so, in addition to meeting your husband, right, and getting that life kicked off, I mean, what was your student experience like? I mean, were you part of any clubs or organizations? Did you have any professors that were really profound to you or peers that you still keep in touch with? Like, what was it like for you as a student?
Yeah, so I dormed there on campus. I grew up in Upland, California, which is about an hour and 30 minutes away, so too far to drive home, but close enough to go home on the weekends. So I was fortunate to dorm there for 2 years, and I actually met my best friend, who I'm still friends with today. We were in each other's weddings, we're aunts to each other's kids. She was my roommate my freshman year, sophomore year. We lived together all 4 years in college. And we did a lot of things together there. So Long Beach State definitely formed a lot of close relationships throughout my life. When I was a freshman, I joined a community service organization called Petra, and it was an incredible experience. Met so many great friends there, and we did a lot of great work. It was a volunteer-based organization. It really helped not only get involved with campus, but the community around Long Beach. It really opened my eyes to the world around us and the good we can do in the world together and when we come together as a group of people. And I had the fortunate opportunity to serve on their board, I guess you will, at the time. And then I also was president for a year and a half there as well. In addition to that, as in part of Petra, I was also a guest contributor on a couple of different publications, including the newspaper, Dig Magazine. And then also another fortunate experience was I had an on-campus internship at KJazz 88.1 FM, the jazz
Oh,
station located there. I did everything you could possibly think of. First day as an intern, they had me put together membership envelopes, and I said, "What next?" And they're like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to learn how to write copy and produce shows." And they're like, "Okay." And then I said, "Oh, you have a social media channel. Can we do something with this Facebook page?" They're, "Sure, go ahead." So I kind of learned how to do everything and anything. And it was an opportunity just to say yes to everything and go ask anybody for help. I asked people for help in the receptionist office, to the DJs, to, you know, the chief counsel and the chief operating officer there. So I did everything from running the soundboard on the weekends at 5 a.m.
wow.
sometimes running the social media channels, writing some on-air copy, into getting hot dogs and drinks for the on-air talent. So yeah, and then I was also I worked off campus, but there was a lot of us who worked together. And yeah, Cal State Long Beach, even though it feels like centuries ago, now that I'm getting older, it was still such a formative time in my life, and I learned so much about the person I am today. It obviously shaped my personal relationships and the person I am, but also shaped a lot of my professionalism too, and really put me on this path that I had no idea I was going to do. So it's just great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to kind of, delve a little bit more into that. You were an intern and the concept of internships. I mean, I think that in journalism and marketing and that kind of thing, like internships are a pretty big deal.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what really was that the only internship that you did? And, how did you put yourself in a position to be successful interning?
Yeah, so I interned at a couple other places at the time too. I was also a working student, so when I took internships, they had to be paid because
Mhm.
I did not have the luxury of working for free, and that's really hard in journalism. And I had to say no to a few things because I had bills to pay. But again, I think that just made me a stronger, better person, better writer, and it forced me to be positions that I needed to be in. So I did work as an intern for a little bit at KPCC, which is now LAist. And that's because the managing editor, Nick Roman, worked obviously at LAist at 89.3, but also was a radio journalism professor there at Cal State Long Beach. And I walked in 10 minutes earlier to class. I knew exactly who he was. And I said, "Hi, Mr. Roman, I'm Deanna. I want to work for NPR one day as a broadcaster." And he goes, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "Yes, that's why I'm in this class." So I forced him to take me to work with him, and I kind of just followed him around. And he said I was borderline annoying, but very persistent. So I took that as one. And I was able to work some election night coverage, and I got to force myself in situations that other students didn't get to be in because I just was hungry for the work. And even though I didn't go into radio broadcasting, which is okay, I'm very happy where I'm at now. I'm able to utilize him as a contact before for stories and pitching and things like that. So
Yeah, that's great. And I, off of that, right? Like I think that a lot of people, go to school and they think that they're gonna be one thing, or they think there's this one path, but that may not necessarily be the case. And I think that's definitely the case for you. So, I mean, could you tell us a little bit about, the path that you took and, the intentionality of that? Right? Like, is it something you just kind of fell into, or, a little bit more intentional than that?
yeah, so it's so interesting you mentioned that because at KJazz, I really did fall into social media marketing. Um, For current students today, social media was not like it was when I went to college. We really had Facebook, and it was really a place to send each other stickers. And it was kind of this fun new place everyone was on. You could only get on it if you had a college email address, and then after a couple of years, they opened it up. So it's like getting to Facebook was like a cool initiation into becoming a college student. And so when I worked at the radio station and Facebook was kind of becoming a thing, I said we need to have a really robust Facebook page. And so I came up with my first content strategy. I had really no idea what I was doing. I was just taking the fundamentals I learned from journalism school and some basic comm classes. I said, "This is what I think we need to be doing." And I remember when I was graduating, I really, really wanted to work there. I wanted to be the social media manager because I heard those positions had been opening up in a few places and they weren't quite ready for that. Um, and so kind of, I really just did stumble into digital marketing, social media marketing. I said I wanted to be a journalist. When I graduated in 2011, it was still kind of towards the tail end of the recession, and newspapers were laying off folks, getting rid of departments. And for what some newspapers and some small publications were offering me as a starting salary, I was making more money working at a movie theater.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so again, being like so many Cal State Long Beach students, when you're putting yourself through school or not getting very little support from home, because that's just our realities. I had to make sure I was able to take a job where I could pay off student loans. And so I remember I talked about how I was a part of the volunteer organization Petra. So I got this opportunity to work for the Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles. And I was like, okay, great. I'll go and make a difference there. And I'll use these tools and resources that I've learned through my time at Cal State Long Beach. And I got in there, and 6 months in, I'm like, I am dying to write. It is like eating away at my soul that I can't write every day, that I'm not telling stories. But I learned a lot of great things. I did lots of grassroots marketing there, but I was really interested in graduating. I kind of had a mixture of this kind of nonprofit management experience with the writing and the storytelling, the communications and marketing. And at first I couldn't find it fit. And then I again fell into something else. And I took a job as an assistant a year and a half after graduating college at USC Show Foundation, a communications assistant. And I was like, I see on here that social media is 25%. I'll do 50%. And then a year later, I was promoted and doing that full time. So I've been really good throughout my year of kind of maneuvering myself maybe in places I shouldn't be, but I think I belong. And again, I attribute that all to Cal State Long Beach.
Yeah. No, I love, I think what sticks out to me is like this confidence, right? Like
Where it came from.
yeah. I mean, I think that there's a, you clearly have this confidence of, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to learn, this is where I want to be, and just kind of going after that. And so, I was wondering, is there something that Cal State Long Beach students could do, any advice, things to kind of bolster that confidence within themselves?
Yeah, and to be fair, I think that's also a benefit of being young,
Mm.
is kind of being persistent and not knowing that you're annoying because you're young. Is the first time you've ever done this. And everyone told me in order to be a journalist, you had to be a go-getter. I was like, okay, I'll be a go-getter. So where your photo is, the big roundabout, when they had TV stations, trucks would park there to go do stories. Every time I went up and I'm like, I'm Deanna, I'm a journalism student. I would get the card of the reporter and I would ask them questions. And, that was just who I was at a young age. And I think you have to continue that. You can't let go of it. And I think once you start working, you get in places and you fail and you get up and you fail and you have not a great boss or you have a good boss, you don't have great coworkers and you get nitpicked and criticized. Don't lose that confidence. Don't imposter syndrome, I think had later on in my life had made me feel like I wasn't good enough for certain positions. And I think especially as a working woman, that can happen a lot of times. As a working mom, that can happen a lot. So for young or not so young Cal State Long Beach recently alumni or students, so just don't let go of that fire. And if you don't have that fire anymore, you don't have that driving passion, it's time to look for something else.
Yeah. No, fantastic advice. But I mean, you ultimately did continue on this path of digital marketing, and you're the digital, or you're the marketing and communication manager at the IEHP Foundation right now. Excuse me.
Okay.
Um, and so I was wondering, what is that? And I think a lot of folks, right, you give them your position and your job title and your company, and they think, okay, that's great, but don't necessarily understand what that like actually means and what an actual day to day actually looks like. So, what is a typical day in your position look like?
No day is the same.
Okay.
So I technically work for a startup, if you will. We are IEHP Foundation Inland Empire Health Plan. It's a managed care plan, similar to LA Care in Los Angeles County. Serves 6 million Medi-Cal members. So talked about earlier how I kind of wanted to make a difference in Wyrward nonprofits for a little bit, and then also the volunteer organization. So this was like a perfect fit for me to be able to help people through storytelling communications. So Inland Empire Health Plan established a foundation about 2 years ago with $100 million endowment. And I'll talk about what endowment means in a second, but it's to really help uplift the Inland Empire region, the community as a whole. And so that's what the foundation does. So the foundation has an endowment, which goes into an investment fund and makes money. And then we take that money, that makes every year the interest, and provide grants to local nonprofits in the region. So Inland Empire is where I grew up. There's a lot of similarities to places in LA and Long Beach that have high health disparities, high inequities that have created health disparities in the region. So it's really dedicated to creating vibrant health, which is this idea of making sure that everybody has healthcare access and equity. And again, that's something that I learned at Cal State Long Beach, working with Petra, working with students, knowing that there was some of my friends went hungry at the time that my father lost his job and I had to live my life off of a, minimum wage job and eating popcorn sometimes for dinner. So I think we've all been in this hard situation. So at the foundation, it's different since we're part of the health plan, but we're still our own organization. So we're creating the communications plan from bottom up. So there was no messaging when I got there. There was a logo. There was no website. There was nothing. So it's been really fun to be able to build that at the ground up as we're building our strategic plan. So I think for many of us who already work in communications, to come in at the forefront, the very beginning, that is a unique opportunity. And that's not an opportunity that many organizations have. The fact that this foundation needed a marketing and communications manager from the beginning is very unique. And not just hiring a firm or consultant. Like, this is important. We make sure I get our messaging across, as we're kind of a little bit of a difficult organization to message about, since we're part of the health plan. We're a foundation specifically for our community. Medical is kind of a different difficult thing to talk about. Philanthropy is a difficult thing to talk about. So it's been really great to be there at the forefront and at the beginning. And when I took the position, I was actually working on the health plan side as a social media or as a digital marketing specialist. And I loved my job and I loved everything we were doing, and I wasn't looking, and that popped up and I didn't apply for it. And I had an informational interview, but I was like, oh, it's a manager job. I know other people are going to apply for it. And I know it was supposed to be a director job, and that imposter syndrome started creeping up because it wasn't digital marketing, is public relations and branding. Even though I had experience doing all that, I was like, oh, I shouldn't do it. And I woke up one night and I couldn't go back to sleep. And then I just applied for the position. I was like, all right, okay, I hear you, universe. It's time to apply. And I got the job, and I've been here for a year and a half. And we're starting to do some amazing things. And I couldn't be happier where I am at my career. And the ability to take everything I've learned throughout, internships, throughout their positions, through grad school, I was able to take all of that and finally put it into this one position, while also making a real difference in the place that I love, in the city that I live in the region that I live in.
Yeah. Well, and so working for a nonprofit, right? That is, I think that people who work for nonprofits often say that they wear many hats,
Mhm.
right? Because there's not enough resources to go around to fill every position that should be filled. So how do you find working in a nonprofit? How do you find, what strategies do you put in place to make sure that, everything that does need to get done gets done? And I know you wanted to, talk about, what an endowment means and philanthropy and all that. So yeah, talk a little bit about working for a nonprofit.
Yeah, and I think nonprofits, small businesses, I think most organizations, you're gonna be wearing very many hats. Even if you work for Google, I mean, everyone's tightening their belts and everything. So I think anywhere you're gonna wear many hats. And I think specifically for a startup organization, a new nonprofit, there's new needs popping up every day. So I don't have a background in public policy or politics, but I'm now staffing the public policy and advocacy committee, and I love it. And I've actually always wanted to get involved, but I just didn't because I did communications and marketing. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'm happy to do that. So kind of going back to the feisty intern back at the radio station, when someone says, hey, we need this done, I'm like, I can do it. I'll do it. But the one thing I think I've learned, and I think specifically being a mom, is when to say no.
Mm.
and when to say, I would love to do that, but I need this taken off my plate. And I think that's really important in nonprofits. I think also advocating for your self-worth. I learned this early on at the Girl Scouts is that, just because you work at a nonprofit doesn't mean you don't get to get a good wage, not a livable wage, but a good wage. You went to school, you did all this work, you were hired for your expertise, your creativity. And just because you work at a nonprofit does not mean that you don't get to get compensated for that. So I think fighting for yourself and showing like, hey, this is what at other places, this is what people are making. We are doing the same exact work. We deserve that self-worth too. And I've dealt with that at boutique agencies, like smaller agencies, always advocating for your self-worth. This is what I'm bringing in. This is what I should be able to do. So don't get scared to not go into nonprofits because it's great. It's rewarding. I mean, universities are nonprofits, which are fantastic. You talked about my when you read my bio about going to USC and getting my MCM, which is Master's in Communication Management, not a Master's in chorale music. So no, don't do that. But the reason I have a master's from USC is because when I was that assistant job where I got promoted to a digital communication specialist, that was at USC for USC Show Foundation, which is an incredible organization doing great work for Holocaust and genocide education and awareness and documenting, preserving survivor testimonials. But it was at USC. And so if you worked full time at USC, you got to take graduate courses if you got accepted, kind of similar to other colleges, for tuition free. And then I didn't have to pay the taxes on them because I was working in the field of communications. So just like great opportunities, sought that out. I wasn't going to be able to grad school if I didn't have an organization that paid for it. So when I saw that USC would pay for that, I took a huge pay cut to go there, but I made it up a few years later. So just learned like I would not be able to take a pay cut because I have kids, but back then when I was in my early 20s, my husband and I were eating, Cheerios every night. We could do that. So just take advantage of those opportunities while they come up because they might not come again.
Yeah. No, I mean, fantastic, fantastic advice. So I wanted to ask you, this is one of my favorite questions to ask. And that is, it's a two-part question. And so the first part is, what is the most challenging part of your job?
Oh, that's a good question. I think here now at the IEHP Foundation, since it's a new organization, I think it's just developing our brand voice. It changes what we're going to do kind of changes almost every day because we're still developing our strategic plan. So what the organization was a year ago is different than it is today. So I think that's the biggest challenge is just developing that brand voice, that messaging as a team of one. I'm a marketing manager for myself. I don't have a team. But I don't have a team that works under me, but I have a great team that I work with. And so I'm able, luckily enough to, talk to our strategy and grants administrator, our CEO, pick everyone's brain. But since we're still connected to IHP, they have a wonderful marketing communications department that I get to work with. But I think that is just the challenging is building something brand new, building something from the ground up. Something I haven't done before, but I'm absolutely loving. And yeah, so that can be sometimes a challenge. That's a good challenge to have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and then the second part is, what's the most rewarding?
I think at my current role, it's knowing that the organization I work for is going to make a difference um, in this region. I've personally had a couple of health scares with family members. I almost lost my dad to COVID during the big outbreak of it. And I remember saying, like, I got to work in healthcare. I got to help change the system. I got to do something. And my son's on the autism spectrum. And so I've learned a lot of what neurodivergent is and opportunities. But knowing that there's people who are in our situations who have kids with health issues, have kids with, neurodiversity affirming, and they don't have that access to care. They don't have a specialist in their area. They don't have access to get to the doctors. So knowing that even though I don't play on the care part because I'm obviously not a doctor or nurse because I did writing and not math and science, but knowing that our stories and our support and how we continue to tell the narrative of the region that I love, that's my favorite part. It's just being part of something much bigger than myself.
Yeah, and I mean, you may not be doing the doctoring right, but you know,
I want me to
you're out
either.
there, but you're out there getting the message right, and maybe that family sees the messaging and sees the branding and is able to find that help, right? Like pathways to the help are just as important, right?
Yeah, and uplifting communities as a whole. And I think throughout my career, I've always wanted to work for organizations that did some kind of good work, even if it was a for-profit agency. It was, for-profit agency. This is very interesting. Worked for a marketing agency that worked just for veterinary specialists. So these are veterinarians that went to additional schooling to be like oncologists, ER docs, surgeons. So that was a wild ride. It was so fun learning about that. But then in the day, I felt good about the work I was doing because I wasn't writing for Coca-Cola or just selling tires. We were helping, animals feel better and pet parents getting the care that they needed. And so that's always been kind of at the core. And I think that goes back to Cal State Long Beach. That goes back to be able to learn about the basics of marketing, communications, and journalism while being able to serve our communities at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I know that transferable skills, right? Yeah, so important, and I think getting those skills right is kind of or being able to take your skills and transfer them is also going to help with that imposter syndrome, right? Like being able to say, I may not have done this before, but here are all the things I did do, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Um,
don't let anyone tell you just because you did it in college doesn't mean that it didn't. Like if you did it in college, it meant something. If you worked for the school newspaper, that meant something. If you wrote a paper on it in class, that meant something. So just because it was college doesn't mean anything. It's definitely transferable.
Absolutely. And so another thing is that, you left school at a time when the economy maybe wasn't at its peak or at its best. And there are a lot of students right now who are looking at leaving, or students who have just left, and are also not looking at the world's best economy ever. So what advice might you be able to give to folks who are in that situation, being
Yeah,
someone who's done that themselves?
yeah. It was so interesting when I graduated. I had I it's gonna sound interesting. I felt almost like a failure right away because I didn't have a job right out of school. Even though I was working at the radio station still, they hired me as like part-time temp staff. So I kind of ran around and did a lot of stuff. I was working basically full-time at a movie theater there, just a mile and a half down from Cal State Long Beach. But I was like, oh, I didn't have what I called at the time a big girl job. I didn't have like that career job. And I look back at my that now, I'm like, what are you complaining? Like you completed a 4-year degree. I did all these amazing things. I got to study abroad. I got to interview people that other journalists didn't get to interview at the time. I was being part of stories that I was in the same room and same press conference as like KBC and LA Times. Like those are amazing accomplishments. So don't get down and on yourself that you don't have that job yet, or you have to go take that super entry level job. When you're 22 years old and just graduated, you are super entry level. That's just what we are. And I wish someone would have told me that when I had just graduated because I was like, oh, I have this experience. I need to get this. I was like, no, go work, get your foot in the door, work hard. But it's not your only thing. Your type of job does not define your value. It does not define who you are. Work is not the only important thing in life. It's definitely could be a big part of your life, but also I would say pursue other passions. When I had just graduated, someone said, I can't pay you, but I need help doing social media for this small magazine that I started. I was like, okay, great. I'll do that for some practice. Just to get some, my feet kind of wet a little bit more. And it was great. And it was something to add onto a resume. And that, helped to get me and my foot in the door for something else. Also, right now, I serve on the Public Relations Society of the Inland Empire Chapters Board. And it's a volunteer position. Get on some volunteer boards. That's another great place to hone your skills. It's another great place to network. So even if there's not a huge abundance of those jobs, there's definitely opportunities to continue to hone your skills. And maybe go work at USC or somewhere else. I'll pay for your graduate school. That's not a bad place either.
Yeah, they're hiring.
They're always hiring.
So, in your role, I know that you mentioned that you are a team of one. You work with some people, but a team of one. So as far as the ability to network or interact with other folks in your profession, how do you find those opportunities to network? And how do you navigate that process?
Yeah. Well, one, LinkedIn is one of the greatest social media tools out there. It's a great place to connect with folks. You can just start following and joining some of the groups. I think those have been some great ways to network and to learn from one another. If you're in communications and you see a stellar campaign out there, find out who the company is and who the person that did it. Just follow them, engage with them. I've done that before. When I started working at the foundation, what I did is I started cold emailing different marketing directors of foundations from all over the country. And I was like, hey, I'm new to this. I'd love to learn more. Not one person said no. They
Wow.
all met with me over Zoom. I met some of them in person. I'm good friends with some of them now. So I think that is also a power. Like, don't be afraid just to email somebody. I know calling, like I'm a millennial, so I'm not going to call someone out of the blue. Like that is a little too much. But a very nice professional email, like, hey, like if you email me said I am new into this field, I would just like some tips. I would drop everything to what can I do to help you? How can we discuss? That's how I had a mentee that way. It was one of my colleagues' daughters was starting in kind of digital marketing. I said, absolutely, because I wish I had someone to kind of walk me through that journey as well. And then I also said I serve on the Public Relations Society of America, like joining things that have complicated names, Inland Empire chapter. I was actually a student member of PRSSA when I was at Cal State Long Beach. So when I took this position, I was like, oh, I want to go be part of the Public Relations Society because I'll be doing some media relations for the foundation. And then, a few months later, I'm on the board.
Funny how that happened.
I tend to do that. I tend to just join things. My husband says I can't be more involved in PTA and I cannot lead the kids soccer team because I do too much. So that has been my favorite place because it is local. A lot of us are in these same positions. A lot of us are trying to change the narrative of the region that we love. So that's great. And I'm also part of another amazing networking group called the Communications Network. And that is for comms professionals just in philanthropy and nonprofits. And I'm excited to go to their conference in a few months. And I've made some great colleagues and friends from there as well. So don't be afraid to get yourself into those virtual or physical rooms, even if you're young and starting out, because if someone's saying no to you, they don't want to help you, then you just remember that as a contact you don't want to engage with next time. But most people are going to say, especially comms folks, of course, are going to want to talk. Who's not going to talk?
Talking's your whole thing.
That's our whole thing. I'll be exhausted by the end of the day, but I would love to chat with you.
Yeah, that's great. And you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but how important is mentoring in your field? And do you have any mentors yourself? I know it sounds like you have at least one mentee.
Yeah, I do. And she's fantastic. And I love getting together with her and learning about not only like, herself and her work, but also her life as well. Um, and it's weird because I didn't think I was old enough to have a mentee. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I am. I'm old enough now. I
Oh,
graduated
funny how that
long
happens.
ago, I'm like, oh yeah, you grew up when you're an adult. But yeah, mentorship's really important. I had some great mentors at Cal State Long Beach. I mean, joining the Petra, the volunteer organization. I was a freshman. I was hanging out with seniors who were ready to go. Even some graduate students who were getting ready to go into the world, and I'm still connected with them. And they were great mentors to kind of help like shepherd what life looks like in college and kind of who to connect with. The journalism department counseling in Long Beach, Danny Patskin was great. He is a professor there. Nick Roman, who got me in the room at LAS or KPCC. That was great. When I started working at USC Show Foundation, my two supervisors at the time, Anne Marie Stein, who was the publicist on Schindler's List, I learned so much from her. Even though I didn't necessarily do public relations there, I learned everything I knew about public relations there. And she taught me the three best things to do when working in communications is one, never say, I don't know.
Mm.
Someone says, hey, can you get that for me? I don't know. Say, I might not know the answer, but I'll get back to you. Or, okay, that sounds great. Let me go connect with so-and-so and get back to you. Greatest advice ever. And then also, she also taught me, if you can't back up a decision, why make it? So she would never be frustrated with us, angry with us if we made a decision, even if it was the wrong one in the end, but as long as we could give validation, we could back up for it. And I remember we had this big project we were launching. She was traveling to Europe and we needed to launch it, but we didn't get her green light yet. But we know that the executive director's organization wanted it. And I remember texting one of my colleagues, I'm like, we got to go. It's timely, everything's ready to go. And if she says, why did this launch? I say, because we had to. It was timely. We made the right decision. Everything was greenlit. We're just waiting for your final approval. And we did, and it went well. And nothing happened. The world is still here. So I think that always made me not so afraid to make decisions. That was always a good one. And then she also taught me with PR to make yourself helpful to a journalist. So if you see a journalist is writing a story, give them a call. Like, hey, I see you're writing a story about this topic. I have so and so over here could help you. Or at the Shoah Foundation, people call all the time asking if they had a certain Holocaust survivor in our archive, or if anyone talked about a certain topic in history. And there's so many times where we weren't part of the story in the beginning, and then we became part of the story. So today, now, 10 years after I worked there, I'm always want to make myself available to journalists. So now I've been emailing, connecting with local journalists like, hey, if you need help with getting access to nonprofits or about this certain health topic, I'm here as a resource, just let me know. And I think that's a really powerful tool rather than just pitching to journalists. There's not many left and they're all overworked and tired and don't get paid enough. So I think being that helpful resource is really important. And I learned that from her.
No, valuable piece of advice, and sounds like a very valuable mentor.
Yeah, she was great. So I try to embody her a lot of times when I'm working now. So
And hopefully when you're mentoring, right?
yes, yes. So yeah, if I'm ever like, I don't know if I should make this decision, but Anne Marie told me if you can back it up, just go with it. So I'm gonna go with it.
Well, so with your industry, with marketing and communications, I think the rise of AI and other technological advances is definitely something that um, you know it looks like, right, possibly it may have such a big impact on the field. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on AI and these other technologies that are on the rise, and are they a good thing or a bad thing or a neutral thing? How do you see it impacting your industry?
Oh, I definitely see AI and just digital trends emerging definitely affecting my industry. I I started my career in digital marketing because Facebook exploded and became this powerful marketing tool that we didn't have to pay for like years. And I remember when I worked at KJAZ, and I wish I had some of the data reports from back then because the amount of impressions and engagement we were getting was just astronomical. It's things that you would never get now as a business without having to pay for it. So I started my career with these emerging tools, so these emerging social media platforms that a lot of seasoned professionals were very hesitant to get into. So I think we have to do the same thing with AI. You have to embrace it in a way that's ethical. There's a lot of great work being done on the use of utilizing AI, especially for marketing communications ethically. Public Relations Society of America does a great job of producing a lot of content on that. And I think just with almost any industry, it's not going to completely replace your job. I mean, if you think ChatGPT is going to replace you as a writer, you read some of the stuff that ChatGPT comes out with. It is a helpful tool though, and I think AI is a very helpful tool. I think especially as a communications team of one, you don't have a room of people to spitball ideas to think, oh, how are we going to come up with a tagline? How are we going to do that? So a lot of times I utilize ChatGPT and some other AI tools just to kind of get the ideas flowing. When you have 20 pieces of materials you got to get out, it can be a great tool. And also can help you in areas that you might not be super strong. So if you're in digital marketing and your bread and butter, your biggest skill is graphic design, or visual communications, videography, but you're not the strongest writer, you can use AI tools to help you with the social media captions. Same thing if you're the writer and you're not super strong in visual communications, you can have AI kind of help with some of that artwork. But as someone who studied journalism and is a huge media literacy proponent, I think we just have to be careful in how we utilize it. And I think if you are utilizing it, you need to be very upfront with the people in your workplace that you're using it, and to not just copy and paste, but utilize it in a really safe and smart way. So I love ChatGPT. I use it today to help me get some concepts out when I was putting together a slide deck. I also use some integrative AI tools and some other platforms. If you're a team of one, the best tool you can use out there is Grammarly.com. It is the spell check on steroids. It's a great tool. I've started using it years ago, and it can't live life without it. It is a fantastic tool to use, and they have a great AI integration there as well to help. So if you're writing something, you're like, hey, I want to make this sound a little bit more professional, or want to sound put in more layman's terms, it can help you with that. So I think it's a good tool to use. And I think for writers and communications folks, you have to know how to write. You have to know how to communicate to be able to use those tools effectively. It is not replacing your skills and experience, but I think it can enhance the work that you do.
Yeah. What is, for someone who is, just starting out in the field, right? Someone who's just ready to dip their toe into the marketing and communications field. What's the one best piece of advice you can give someone?
Be kind to yourself. I want to say strong writing skills and strong networking skills, but be kind to yourself, because as someone who's has high personal anxiety, I have chosen a career where you're constantly criticized for your writing and your creativity. And especially when I was working at an agency, that could be kind of rough sometimes, because you have to turn out things so quickly and you're going through a fast editing process. So really, if you want to go in this field, you have to be kind to yourself. There's going to be days where you're going to hit the ground running and you're creating this great content and this great materials. And there's going to be days where you can spell the word dog wrong because you're too busy, or you spelled awesome wrong in a social media graphic. You want to clone over the table and die, but everyone makes mistakes and everyone needs an editor, and not everyone has it figured out. And so I think it applies to almost any profession that you do. It's just to give yourself grace every day, be kind to yourself, and just be persistent where it's borderline annoying, because that's kind of helped me.
I love it. I think we got the chat title right. Should be that, right? Borderline annoying but persistent. I cannot believe it. This always shocks me, but we are coming towards the end of our time. And so I like to ask this one closing question, which is, if you were able to wave a magic wand or get into a time machine and go talk to yourself right as you were about to graduate from CSULV, what would you say?
Um, that opportunities are going to arise that you never expected, and just take them. And even though you have these ideas of what you want to do, just take those opportunities that come up, because those are the right ones.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, Deanna, thank you so much for your time today. It's been incredibly helpful and enlightening, and just a lot of fun. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thanks for having me
And
here. It was so fun to talk and reminisce and everything. I appreciate it.
oh yeah, absolutely. And for all of you who joined in with us today, thank you as well for joining us. Like I said, this is going to be available for you to watch on demand at our website at www.csulb.edu/alumni. So again, yeah, definitely watch it again and send it to literally five people 10 people send it around. And also follow us on social media. We are at CSULB alumni on all of our platforms. And so definitely give us a follow so that way you can stay engaged and connected and not miss the next industry chat or the next opportunity that we might have for you. So please do reach out if you have any questions, and we'd love to engage and connect with you. Deanna, if anyone wanted to connect with you, maybe continue the conversation or ask any questions, how might they get in touch with you?
Yes, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm on there a little too much, so go ahead and connect with me there. And then you can also send me an email to my company email, Deanna, Deanna Hendrick, at IEHPfoundation.org. So, or you can grab that email off my LinkedIn too.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and thank you all. And until next time, we will have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.